Just sign it, Mom. Olivia's voice was sharp, impatient, nothing like the little girl who used to cling to my hand. I was still weak, still trying to breathe without pain, and the folder she pushed toward me felt heavier than it should. I opened it slowly, and a photograph slipped out. My fingers froze. There she was, Olivia as a child, my late husband Michael, and standing beside them, Vanessa Hale, a woman I had buried 20 years ago, and somehow my daughter had her in a picture I was never meant to see. If you were sitting where I was, would you sign that paper? Before we go any further, tell me honestly, what would you do in my place? And where are you watching from? Right now, I always read your stories. If this kind of story pulls you in, don't forget to like and subscribe, because I promise you this one only gets darker from here. I didn't sign the papers. I told Olivia I needed time, just a day or two, to read everything carefully. It was the safest excuse I could think of without setting her off. She didn't like it. I could see that immediately in the way her jaw tightened, in the way she exhaled sharply through her nose like she used to do as a teenager when I told her no. But she forced a smile. "Of course, Mom," she said too quickly. "Take your time. I don't want things to get complicated later." That word again, complicated. After she left, the house felt too quiet. Not peaceful, just hollow. Like something had shifted in the air and refused to settle back into place. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, staring at the folder. The photograph was still lying beside it, face up. I didn't touch it again right away. I couldn't. Instead, I wrapped both hands around my mug of tea, even though it had gone cold, and tried to steady my breathing. 18 months. That's how long it had been since Michael died. Some days, it felt like yesterday, the way the hospital room smelled the hum of machines, the way his hand felt lighter in mine than it ever had in 42 years of marriage. Other days, it felt like I'd already lived an entire lifetime without him. The house had changed after that. Not physically. The walls were the same, the furniture untouched. But the rhythm of it, the quiet moments, the little routines, those were gone. And in their place, there was this constant subtle unease, like I was always waiting for something to happen. Then came the pneumonia. 3 months ago, I had collapsed in this very kitchen. I remember reaching for the counter, my chest burning the room, spinning, and then waking up in a hospital bed with Olivia standing over me. That was the first time I noticed the change in her. Before that, Olivia and we weren't close. Not in the way people imagine mothers and daughters should be. We spoke on holidays. We saw each other a few times a year. She had her life, her job in San Diego, her friends, her routines, and I had mine. There was love, yes, but it was distant, careful. After I got sick, everything shifted. She started calling every day. Then she started visiting every week. Then suddenly she was here all the time, cleaning, organizing, bringing groceries, rearranging cabinets I had used the same way for decades. At first I thought, maybe this was what loss does. Maybe losing her father had shaken something loose inside her. Maybe she realized time wasn't endless. I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that. But slowly, small things began to bother me. The way she asked about my finances casually, as if it were nothing. So, Mom, do you still have that retirement account Dad set up, or have you thought about what happens to the house long-term, always light, always wrapped in concern, but always there? And then there were the papers. The first time she brought them, I was still recovering. I had just come home from the hospital. I was on medication that made everything feel foggy, like I was moving through a dream I couldn't fully wake up from. She sat me down at the table just like today. "It's just temporary paperwork," she said, "in case anything happens again." I remember flipping through the pages, not really understanding them. Legal terms blurred together. My head hurt. My chest felt tight. "I can sign later," I told her. She hesitated, just for a second, then she smiled and said, "Of course, Mom. No rush." At the time, I was grateful. Now, I wasn't so sure. I looked down at the folder again. This time, I forced myself to open it. The documents were still exactly as I had left them, neatly stacked, crisp, official looking. I didn't need a lawyer to recognize some of the phrases now that I was thinking clearly. Transfer of property, durable power of attorney, medical authority. My stomach tightened. This wasn't just in case paperwork. This was control, full control. I closed the folder slowly, my fingers trembling slightly, and my eyes drifted back to the photograph. I couldn't avoid it anymore. I picked it up. The edges were slightly worn, like it had been handled many times. The colors were faded, but not enough to hide what mattered. Olivia looked about 6 years old. She was smiling, wide, carefree, the kind of smile that used to light up entire rooms. Her hand was in Michael's, and he was looking down at her with that same soft expression he always had when he thought no one was watching. And beside them, Vanessa. Her hair was longer than I remembered, darker. She was smiling too, but not like Olivia, not like Michael. Her smile was knowing, like she understood something the rest of us didn't. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. "Why would you have this?" I whispered, though no one was there to answer. That photo had never been in our home. I would have known. I would have remembered, which meant one thing. It had come from somewhere else. Somewhere Michael had kept hidden. A memory surfaced then sharp and unwelcome, a locked box in the garage. Michael used to keep it on the top shelf behind old tools and paint cans. He always said it was just paperwork things he didn't want cluttering the house. I had never questioned it. Why would I? 42 years of marriage teaches you to pick your battles. And sometimes it teaches you not to ask questions you're afraid to hear the answers to. I swallowed hard. The air in the kitchen felt heavier now. This wasn't just about the papers, and it definitely wasn't just about Olivia. Something else was underneath all of this. Something older, something buried. And somehow, it had found its way back into my house, back into my hands. I stood up slowly, gripping the edge of the table for support. My body still wasn't as strong as it used to be, but in that moment, the weakness didn't matter. What mattered was clarity. For the first time in months, maybe longer, I felt it. Sharp, cold, certain. Olivia hadn't just come back into my life out of love. She had come back with a purpose. And whatever that purpose was, it was tied to this photo. I looked around the kitchen, the same kitchen where I had raised her, where I had cooked her meals, where I had stayed up late helping with homework, where I had held her when she cried. And for the first time in my life, I felt something I never thought I would feel about my own daughter. Doubt. Real, undeniable doubt. I picked up my phone. There was only one person I trusted enough to call right now. Linda Harper. My finger hovered over her name for a second before I pressed it. As the phone began to ring, I glanced once more at the photograph in my hand. Vanessa Hale was looking straight into the camera, straight through time, and somehow it felt like she had been waiting for this moment. Linda didn't pick up on the first call. That wasn't unusual. She volunteered at the church most mornings, helping with food drives or organizing donations, and she had a habit of leaving her phone buried somewhere at the bottom of her purse. Still, as the line rang and rang, I felt my chest tighten, not from illness this time, but from something sharper. Urgency. By the time I hung up, I knew I couldn't just sit there waiting, not with that photograph in my hand, not with everything inside me starting to come undone. I carried the picture with me into the living room and lowered myself carefully onto the couch. The cushions dipped under my weight, familiar and worn, just like everything else in this house. For a moment I let myself breathe. In, out, slow. Then I looked at it again. Really looked this time. Olivia couldn't have been older than 6. I tried to place the year her haircut, the dress she was wearing, the way Michael looked younger, less tired. It had to be sometime in the late 1980s, back when things still felt stable, back when I believed my life made sense. The cabin. That's what unsettled me most. I recognized the background now, the wooden railing, the lake stretching out behind them, the soft blur of trees along the shore. It was Michael's private retreat, a small lakeside cabin about 3 hours north. He had bought it years before Olivia was born, said it was for fishing trips and clearing his head. I had only been there twice. Both times I felt like a guest in my own marriage. He never said I wasn't welcome, but he never invited me back either. And Olivia, she had never been there. At least, that's what I had always believed. My fingers tightened around the photograph. That's not possible, I whispered to myself. It can't be. But it was. Right there in my hands. A memory I didn't have, a moment I wasn't part of, a version of my family that existed somewhere outside of me, a version that included Vanessa Hale. I closed my eyes, and just like that, she was there again, not as the woman in the photograph, but as the woman I remembered. Sharp, confident, too comfortable. She came into our lives quietly at first. Michael mentioned her casually, a colleague, someone from the office just helping with a project. I didn't think much of it. Why would I? We had been married for over 20 years by then. We had a child, a home, a routine that felt unshakable. But then she started appearing more often. Phone calls at odd hours, her name slipping into conversations more frequently, little changes in Michael New Cologne, longer hours and energy that didn't belong to me. I noticed. Of course I noticed. Women always do. But noticing and confronting are two very different things. The night I finally said something, I remember standing in the same house, in the same living room, my hands shaking, my voice barely steady. "Who is she, Michael?" He looked at me like I had just insulted him. "Julia, don't do this," he said. "There's nothing going on." Nothing. Such a simple word, such a powerful lie. We argued that night, really argued, not the quiet disagreements we usually had. Voices raised, accusations thrown, tears I tried not to let him see. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it ended. Vanessa disappeared. Michael told me she had transferred to another office, said it wasn't worth the stress, that he had cut all ties. He apologized not for anything specific, just for making things uncomfortable. And I let it go, not because I believed him completely, but because I wanted to. Because I had a daughter to raise, a life to protect, a version of my family I wasn't ready to lose. So I buried it. I buried Vanessa Hale. I buried the questions. I buried the doubt. Until now. My eyes snapped open and I stared back down at the photograph, my heart pounding harder with every second. She didn't just disappear, I said quietly. The truth settled into me like ice. She had stayed. Somewhere in the background of my life, she had stayed, and Olivia had known her. That realization hit me harder than anything else. Not Michael's betrayal, not the possibility of lies, but Olivia, my daughter. My little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who used to draw pictures of our family holding hands, who used to tell me everything. She had stood next to Vanessa. She had smiled beside her, and I had never known. A sound pulled me out of my thoughts, the faint vibration of my phone on the coffee table. "Linda." I grabbed it immediately. "Linda," I said, my voice tighter than I intended. "I need you." There was no hesitation on her end. That was one of the reasons I trusted her more than anyone. "What happened?" she asked. I swallowed, glancing at the photograph again. "It's Olivia," I said, and something from Michael's past, something I thought was over. "Talk to me." So I did. I told her everything, the papers, the pressure to sign the strange behavior, and finally, the photograph. There was a long pause on the other end. "Julia," Linda said slowly, "that's not an accident." "I know." "No, I mean it," she continued. "Photos don't just end up in legal documents by mistake. Either someone put it there on purpose, or it came from something they don't want you looking at too closely." A chill ran through me. "That's exactly what I was thinking," I admitted. "Have you asked Olivia about it?" I tried. She brushed it off, too quickly. Another pause. "Then don't confront her again," Linda said firmly. "Not yet." I frowned. "Why not?" "Because right now she thinks you're confused, weak." "Easy to push," Linda replied. "The moment she realizes you're paying attention, she'll change her strategy." I leaned back against the couch, her words settling into place. "She's my daughter, Linda," I said softly. "I don't want to believe she's capable of something like this." "I know," she said gently, "but you need to stop thinking like her mother for a minute and start thinking like someone who needs to protect herself." "Protect myself from my own child." The words felt wrong, unnatural, almost impossible to accept, and yet nothing about today felt natural anymore. "What do?" I asked. "First," Linda said, "you make copies of everything in that folder. Every page, every detail." "Okay. Second, you find a lawyer. Not someone Olivia knows. Someone independent. I think I know someone," I said, thinking of Daniel Brooks. "Michael had mentioned him once years ago, said he was sharp but fair," good Linda replied. "And Julia, one more thing." I waited. "Don't sign anything. No matter what she says. No matter how much pressure she puts on you." I looked down at the folder again, then at the photograph still in my hand. Vanessa's smile seemed even sharper now, more deliberate, like she had been part of something I was only just beginning to understand. "I won't," I said quietly, and for the first time since Olivia walked into my house with that folder, I meant it. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the photograph again, Olivia's small hand in Michael's Vanessa, standing just close enough to belong there. Not like a stranger, not like a colleague, like someone who had a place. By 3 a.m, I gave up trying. I wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and walked slowly back into the kitchen, careful with each step. My body still reminded me of my recent illness in quiet, stubborn ways, but my mind wouldn't rest. Linda's words echoed over and over. Don't confront her again, not yet. So instead, I did what she told me. I made copies. Every page in that folder went through my printer one by one. The sound of the machine filled the silence of the house, steady and mechanical, grounding me in something real while everything else felt like it was shifting. Property transfer documents, power of attorney forms, medical authority, and then something I hadn't fully processed before. A competency declaration. I froze. I picked up the copied page and read it again, slower this time. Demonstrates signs of cognitive decline, requires assistance in managing financial and medical decisions. Recommended immediate transfer of decision-making authority. My hands started to shake. This wasn't just about helping me. This was about declaring me incapable, about taking everything from me legally. A tight, cold knot formed in my chest. "Olivia," I whispered, my voice barely audible. I sank into one of the kitchen chairs, the paper still clutched in my hand. My daughter, the girl I raised, the girl I had protected, comforted, sacrificed for in ways she would never fully understand. She had signed her name at the bottom of that page, not as my daughter, but as a witness, as someone confirming that I was no longer able to take care of myself. The betrayal of that, it didn't come as a sharp pain. It came slowly, like something cracking deep inside me, spreading outward, quiet but irreversible. By the time the sun began to rise, I had made copies of everything. I placed them neatly into a separate folder and hid it in the back of a drawer in my bedroom, somewhere Olivia would never think to look. The original folder I left exactly where it had been, on the kitchen table, like nothing had changed, like I was still the same tired, uncertain woman she thought she could pressure, but I wasn't, not anymore. At 9 o'clock, I called Daniel Brooks. He answered on the third ring. "Daniel Brooks." "Mr. Brooks, my name is Julia Cruz," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. I was hoping to schedule a consultation as soon as possible. There was a brief pause. "Of course, Miss Cruz. What seems to be the matter?" I hesitated. "How do you summarize something like this? My daughter brought me some legal documents to sign," I said carefully. "And I have concerns about what they actually do." His tone shifted, immediately sharper, more attentive. "I see. Can you come in today?" "Yes," I said, without hesitation. "I can." "Good. I have an opening at 11. Bring everything you have. I will." When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Control, even if it was small, even if it was fragile. It was enough. Olivia arrived just before 10. She didn't knock. She never did anymore. She walked in like the house already belonged to her morning mom, she said, setting her bag down on the counter. "Did you get a chance to look at the papers?" I forced a small smile, keeping my tone light. "I did," I said. "They're a lot." She laughed softly, but there was no warmth in it. "It's just standard stuff," she said. "You're overthinking it." Standard, that word again. I watched her carefully as she moved around the kitchen, opening cabinets, checking the fridge, adjusting things that didn't need adjusting. It was something she had started doing recently, this quiet takeover of space, as if reorganizing my home made her feel more in control. "I think I'd like a little more time," I said. Her movements paused. For what she asked, not turning around, to understand everything fully. She turned, then slowly. Her eyes locked onto mine. "You don't need to understand every detail, Mom," she said. "That's why I'm here." There it was. Not concern, not support. Control. "I appreciate that," I said gently, "but it's still my decision." Something flickered across her face. Irritation, maybe even anger, but it disappeared just as quickly. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," she said. "Am I?" I asked quietly. "Yes," she snapped, then caught herself. She exhaled and softened her tone. "Look, I'm just trying to protect you. If something happens again, another fall, another hospital visit, this makes everything easier for who I asked. The question slipped out before I could stop it. Silence filled the room. Olivia stared at me, her expression unreadable. For both of us, she said finally. I nodded slowly as if that answer satisfied me. It didn't, not even close. I actually have an appointment this morning, I added casually. Just to go over everything with someone. Her entire body stiffened. With who she asked immediately. A lawyer, I said. That did it. The mask slipped. What she said, her voice sharper now. Why would you do that? To be thorough. It's not necessary, she insisted. These are straightforward documents. Then it shouldn't be a problem to have someone else look at them, I replied calmly. Her eyes narrowed. Mom, this isn't about mistrust, she said, but her tone said otherwise. It's about efficiency. You don't need to complicate things. There's that word again, I said softly. Complicated. She didn't respond. Instead, she crossed her arms. How long is this going to take, she asked. I'm not sure, I said, however long it needs to. A long, tense pause stretched between us. Then unexpectedly, she laughed. Short, cold. You're being paranoid, she said. Maybe, but not enough. I'll be back this afternoon, I said, reaching for my bag. We can talk then. She didn't try to stop me, but as I walked past her, I felt her eyes on me, sharp, calculating, measuring. The drive to Daniel's office felt longer than it should have. Every red light, every turn, every second alone with my thoughts made the weight of everything heavier. By the time I pulled into the parking lot, my hands were tight on the steering wheel. I sat there for a moment, staring at the building. This was the line. Once I walked in, there was no going back to pretending everything was fine. No more giving Olivia the benefit of the doubt. No more ignoring what was right in front of me. I took a deep breath, then another, and then I opened the door. Daniel Brooks was exactly how I remembered mid-50s, composed, observant, the kind of man who missed nothing. He greeted me with a firm handshake and guided me into his office. Miss Cruz, he said, gesturing for me to sit. Let's take a look. I placed the folder on his desk. This is what my daughter wants me to sign. He opened it without a word. As he read, his expression changed, subtly at first, then unmistakably. Concern, then something sharper. Alarm. He looked up at me. Have you signed any of this? He asked. No. Good, he said immediately. Do not. My stomach dropped. It's that bad, I asked. He leaned back slightly, folding his hands. Miss Cruz, if you sign these documents, you will be giving your daughter full legal control over your home, your finances, and your medical decisions. I swallowed hard. I thought so. He shook his head. It's worse than that, he said. This competency declaration, he tapped the page lightly. This is essentially a statement that you are no longer capable of managing your own life. The words landed heavy, permanent, dangerous. And once that's in place, he continued, it becomes very difficult to reverse. A cold wave of realization washed over me. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't help. This was a takeover. I felt my hands curl into fists in my lap. There's something else, I said, reaching into my bag. I pulled out the photograph and placed it on his desk. This was inside the folder. Daniel glanced down at it, then back up at me. Who is she? He asked, nodding toward Vanessa. I held his gaze. That I said slowly is exactly what I intend to find out. Daniel didn't answer right away. He picked up the photograph, carefully holding it by the edges as if it were evidence, which in a way it was. His eyes moved slowly across the image, taking in every detail: Olivia's age, Michael's posture, Vanessa's position between them. He didn't rush. That alone told me how serious this was. Who took this? He asked finally. I don't know, I said, and that's part of the problem. I've never seen it before. He nodded slightly, still studying the picture, and the woman he asked again. Vanessa Hale. I said the name, tasting bitter even after all these years. She worked with my husband decades ago. There were complications. Daniel glanced up briefly. An affair, I never proved it, I replied, but I believed it. And then she disappeared. And your daughter, he asked, tapping lightly near Olivia's image. She was never supposed to be there, I said firmly. That place, that cabin, wasn't part of her childhood. Not like this. Daniel leaned back in his chair, the photograph still in his hand. Miss Cruz, he said carefully, this photo doesn't feel accidental. I let out a slow breath. That's what my friend said. He nodded, and I agree with her. The room fell quiet for a moment. Then he placed the photograph down beside the documents and folded his hands together. "Let's separate two things," he said. "First, the legal situation. Second, whatever personal history this photograph represents. They may be connected, but we need to understand each one clearly." I nodded. "Okay, legally," he continued. "This is very concerning. The documents your daughter brought you are not routine. They are structured to transfer control quickly and broadly. Whoever drafted them knew exactly what they were doing." A chill ran through me. "Are you saying Olivia didn't do this alone?" "I'm saying," he replied carefully, "this was prepared by someone with legal knowledge. Whether she understood the full implications or not, that's another question." I thought of the way Olivia had spoken those phrases that toned the confidence that didn't quite feel like her own. "She's been repeating things," I said slowly, almost word for word, like she memorized them. Daniel's expression tightened. "That supports the idea that someone is guiding her." My stomach sank. Guiding her toward what he didn't hesitate, control, and possibly isolation. The word hit harder than I expected. Isolation. From who, from what, from help, from protection, from anyone who might question what was happening. I looked down at my hands, suddenly aware of how easily this could have gone differently. If I had signed those papers without thinking, if I had trusted blindly like I always had, I almost did it, I admitted quietly. Daniel leaned forward slightly. "But you didn't," he said, "and that's what matters." I swallowed. "Can she force me?" I asked. "Legally. Not based on what I've seen so far," he said, "but—" He paused. "But what I pressed, if someone builds a case that you are mentally incompetent through documentation, witness statements, or medical opinions, they could attempt to petition the court for guardianship." My chest tightened. "And this," I gestured toward the competency declaration. "That's part of building that case." Yes, the word felt final, calculated, planned. I sat back in the chair, my mind racing. "She thinks I'm weak," I said quietly, "that I won't question it." Daniel didn't respond immediately. "Have you given her any reason to believe that?" he asked. I hesitated. "Yes," I admitted. "After I got sick, I was confused, tired. I relied on her more than I ever have." He nodded. "That's not unusual," he said, "but it does create an opportunity for someone who wants to take advantage of the situation." The way he said it, calm-factual, made it worse, because it wasn't emotional. It was real. "What do I do now?" I asked. Daniel leaned back, slightly thinking. "First," he said, "you do nothing that alerts her to what you know. You continue as if you're considering the documents." I nodded slowly. "Second, I'm going to review these in detail and check who drafted them. There will be a record there, always is." "Okay, third?" He glanced at the photograph again. "We need to understand how this ties in, because I don't believe it's unrelated." Neither did I. "Her name was Vanessa Hale," I repeated. "And if this is connected to her, then it goes back a long time." "How long?" he asked. 30 years, I said. He raised an eyebrow slightly. "That's not just history," he said. "That's something that's been buried. Exactly, buried, until now." "There's more," I said after a moment. Daniel waited. "I found financial records," I continued. "Payments my husband made, regularly, for years." "To Vanessa?" he asked. "I think so. The initials match." And one note said, I hesitated, the word still unsettling. "Support through O's 18. Daniel's expression sharpened. "Oh, as in Olivia?" he asked. "That's what I thought at first," I said. "But now, I'm not sure what to think." He leaned forward again, his tone more focused. "Miss Cruz, I need you to consider something carefully," he said. I braced myself. "If your husband was making long-term payments to this woman," he continued, "there are a few possible reasons, none of them simple." I felt my pulse quicken. "Such as support," he said, "for a child, for silence, for a legal agreement that never went through court." Each possibility hit like a weight pressing down on my chest. "A child?" I repeated. "Yes," I shook my head instinctively. "No, that's not Michael would have told me." Daniel didn't argue. He just watched me. And in that silence, doubt crept in. Because deep down, I knew something. Michael had not told me everything. I had chosen not to see it. "That photo," Daniel said gently, "your daughter is in it. That means whatever this situation was, it wasn't separate from your family. It intersected with it." I closed my eyes briefly. Intersected. That was one way to describe it. Another would be invaded. "What about the son?" I asked suddenly. Daniel looked at me. "What son? Vanessa's son," I said. "Marcus Hale." His posture shifted immediately. "How do you know about him?" I remembered I said. "Linda helped me piece it together. Vanessa had a child. He would be around Olivia's age now." Daniel reached for his computer. "Marcus Hale," he repeated, typing quickly. A few seconds passed, then his eyes narrowed slightly. "Well, he said that's interesting." My heart skipped. "What?" He turned the screen slightly toward me. "Marcus Hale has recently filed inquiries related to estate records," he said. "Specifically, your husband's estate." The room seemed to tilt slightly. "He's looking into Michael?" I asked. "Yes." Why Daniel met my eyes, that he said, is the question we need to answer next. A cold, creeping realization settled over me. This wasn't just about Olivia. This wasn't just about those papers. This was bigger, older, more dangerous. Whatever Michael had hidden, it wasn't buried anymore. And now, it was coming for me. I didn't drive home right away. After leaving Daniel's office, I sat in my car with the engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. The world outside moved as usual, people crossing the streetcars, passing sunlight reflecting off windows. But inside me, everything had shifted. Marcus Hale. The name echoed in my head like something unfinished, something I had heard before but never fully understood. He's been looking into Michael's estate. Daniel's words replayed over and over. Not recently widowed curiosity, not coincidence, deliberate, targeted, and somehow connected to Olivia. I finally turned the key in the ignition, but instead of heading home, I drove in the opposite direction, toward the past. Michael's storage unit was still active. I hadn't had the heart to close it after he died. It felt like shutting a door too permanently, like admitting there was nothing left to discover. So I kept paying the monthly fee, telling myself I'd sort through it someday. That someday had arrived. The unit was on the edge of town in one of those quiet industrial strips where everything looked the same. Rows of metal doors, faded numbers. Silence broken only by distant traffic. I parked, stepped out slowly, and made my way to Unit 214. My hands trembled slightly as I unlocked it. The metal door rattled as it rolled upward, revealing a dim, dusty space filled with stacked boxes, old furniture, and pieces of a life I thought I understood. For a moment, I just stood there. This was Michael's world. The parts he didn't bring home. The parts he kept separate. I stepped inside. The air smelled faintly of wood and paper, aged and untouched. I moved slowly, scanning the boxes. Most were labeled in Michael's handwriting: tax records, tools, fishing gear. Ordinary things. Safe things. But I knew better now. The truth wasn't going to be in the obvious places. It never is. I started with the boxes labeled financial. Inside, there were folders neatly organized, dated, structured. That was Michael. He liked order. He liked control. I flipped through them carefully. Bank statements, investment summaries, receipts. At first, everything looked normal. Then I saw it. A series of transfers, regular, consistent, monthly, the same amount, the same initials. VH. My breath caught. I pulled the documents out, laying them side by side on a nearby box, scanning the dates. They went back years. Not just months, not just a short period, years. "Why would you do this?" I whispered. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was commitment, obligation, or guilt. I kept digging. Another folder, more records, and then a note. Handwritten, short, precise. Final payment scheduled through 018. I stared at it. The same note I had mentioned to Daniel. At first I had assumed it meant Olivia, but now I wasn't sure. Because if it wasn't Olivia, then who? A cold realization began to form, slow and terrifying. What if Michael had been supporting another child? My stomach twisted. "No," I said aloud, shaking my head. "No, that's not possible." But the evidence in front of me didn't argue. It just sat there. Quiet, unmoving, true. I closed my eyes for a moment, pressing my fingers against my temples. Think, don't panic, think, Marcus Hale, Vanessa Hale, payments, years of secrecy, and now legal interest in Michael's estate. It fit. Too well. I opened my eyes again and continued searching faster, now more focused. If there was more, I needed to find it. I moved deeper into the unit, toward the back. That's when I saw it. A small, locked metal box. It was tucked behind a stack of older containers, partially hidden like something not meant to be easily found. My heart began to pound. I recognized it immediately. Michael's lockbox. I hadn't seen it in years. He used to keep it in the garage when Olivia was younger, said it held important documents. I had never opened it, never asked. Trust. Or maybe fear. I knelt down slowly, pulling it out into the light. It was heavier than I expected. The lock was still intact. Of course it was. Michael never left things unfinished. I sat there on the cold concrete floor, staring at it. This was it. Whatever he had kept from me, it was inside. For a moment I hesitated, because opening that box meant something. It meant I was ready to let go of the version of my life I had believed in. The version where Michael was honest, where my marriage, even with its flaws, was real, where my daughter's world began and ended with me. I took a deep breath, then I reached into my purse. I still had the spare key. I don't know why I kept it all these years. Maybe part of me always knew this moment would come. My hands trembled slightly as I inserted it into the lock. There was a soft click. The sound echoed louder than it should have in the quiet unit. I lifted the lid slowly. Inside, documents, photographs, letters, a life I had never been allowed to see. I picked up the first envelope. It was worn edges slightly bent, as if it had been handled many times. My name was written on the front, Julia, in Michael's handwriting. My breath caught. He had written to me, but never given it to me. I stared at it for a long moment before opening it. Inside was a letter, several pages. I unfolded them carefully and began to read. Julia, if you are reading this, then it means I never found the courage to tell you the truth while I was alive. My vision blurred instantly. I blinked hard, forcing myself to continue. There are things I should have told you years ago, things I convinced myself were better left buried, not because I didn't love you, but because I was afraid of losing everything. My hands tightened around the paper. Afraid. Michael had been afraid. Vanessa Hale was not just a mistake. She became part of a situation that I didn't know how to fix. My chest felt tight, heavy. There was a time when I believed a child involved might be mine. The words hit like a physical blow. I stopped breathing. A child. My hands began to shake uncontrollably now. I forced myself to keep reading. I was never certain, but the possibility was enough to bind me to something I didn't know how to escape. Tears blurred the page. I wiped them away quickly. No, not yet. I needed to see this through. I made decisions to protect you, to protect Olivia, but in doing so I created a silence that has lasted too long. Olivia. My heart skipped. What did Olivia have to do with this? I read faster now, desperation creeping in. There are things about the year Olivia was born that you don't know. Everything inside me went still, completely still, like the world had just paused. And if the truth ever comes out, it will change how you see everything. I couldn't read the rest. Not yet. The words hung in the air around me, heavy and suffocating. The year Olivia was born. What could possibly be connected to that? I lowered the letter, slowly, my mind racing, my heart pounding harder than it had in years. This wasn't just about Michael. This wasn't just about Vanessa. This wasn't just about Marcus. This was about Olivia, about my daughter, about something so deeply buried in the foundation of my life that I had never even thought to question it. And now, it was rising to the surface, piece by piece, truth by truth, and I had a feeling I wasn't ready for what came next. I don't remember standing up. One moment I was sitting on the cold concrete floor of the storage unit, Michael's letter trembling in my hands, and the next I was on my feet, pacing in a tight circle, like the air around me had suddenly become too thin to breathe. There are things about the year Olivia was born that you don't know. The sentence wouldn't leave me alone. It echoed louder with every step, pressing against memories I had locked away for decades. Not because I didn't care, but because I thought I already knew the truth. Because I trusted what I had been told. Because I trusted him. I forced myself to stop moving. Running in circles wasn't going to change anything. I needed to think. I looked back down at the open lockbox. There were more letters inside. More documents. More pieces of a story I had only just begun to understand. But I couldn't read them yet. Not until I steadied myself. I pressed my palm flat against the edge of the box and took a slow breath. Then another, the year Olivia was born. I closed my eyes, and just like that, I was there again. The hospital room had been too bright. I remember that clearly. The lights felt harsh, unnatural, like they were exposing everything instead of comforting it. I had been exhausted beyond anything I had ever experienced before. Labor had gone longer than expected. Complications, words like monitoring and precaution floated in and out of conversations I barely understood at the time. Michael had been there. I remember his hand gripping mine. I remember his voice low and steady telling me everything was going to be fine. And then nothing. A gap. A blank space in my memory that I had never questioned. Because after that, there was Olivia. Placed in my arms. Perfect. Healthy. Mine. Or so I believed. My eyes snapped open. "No," I whispered. But the doubt was already there. It had been planted. And now it was growing. I turned back to the lockbox and reached inside again, my movements slower this time, more deliberate. If Michael had left answers, they were here. They had to be. I pulled out another envelope, this one thinner, sealed, with no name on the front. Inside, there were documents, official-looking, medical forms. My heart started to race again as I unfolded them. Hospital records, dates, times, patient numbers. I scanned them quickly at first, then more carefully. My name was there. Julia Cruz, admission date, delivery time, and then something else. A second record, same hospital, same date, different name, Vanessa Hale. My breath caught in my throat. No. I flipped between the two documents, my eyes darting across the details, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Same day, same hospital, same wing. My hands began to shake again. "Why were you there?" I whispered, as if Vanessa could somehow answer me across time. I read more carefully now. Both records showed complications. Both listed newborns. Both had notes, short, clinical, easy to overlook if you weren't looking closely. But I was. I had to be. One line stood out. Temporary transfer neonatal observation. It appeared on both records. The same wording, the same timing. A cold, creeping realization began to take shape. 2 women, 2 births, 2 newborns, and a moment brief, unrecorded, unexplained where those newborns had been moved. My vision blurred again, but this time it wasn't from tears. It was from fear. Deep, primal fear. "No," I said again, louder this time. "That doesn't mean anything, it doesn't prove anything," but the doubt wouldn't stop. Because now, the question had been asked, and once a question like that exists, it doesn't go away. I set the documents down carefully, my hands unsteady. My mind racing. Michael knew. That much was clear now. He had known something, suspected something, enough to write that letter, enough to make payments for years, enough to stay silent. But why wouldn't he tell me? Why would he let me live my entire life believing something that might not be true, unless he wasn't sure, unless the truth itself was uncertain? I felt my chest tighten again, but this time I forced myself to stay grounded. I couldn't spiral. Not yet. I needed facts, not fear. I reached back into the lockbox and found another set of papers, older this time, more worn. Letters. Some addressed to Michael, some unsigned. I opened one at random. The handwriting was different, not Michael's, softer, slanted. "Vanessa, you can't keep pretending this didn't happen." My heart pounded as I read. "You owe me more than silence. You owe him the truth. Him." I swallowed hard. "If you think I'll disappear quietly, you're wrong. I won't let you erase this like it meant nothing." My hands tightened around the paper. Erase. What a child a mistake. A truth neither of them wanted to face. I dropped the letter back into the box, my breath coming faster now. This was too much, too fast, too big. I needed help. I reached for my phone and dialed Linda again. This time she answered immediately. "Julia." "I found something," I said, my voice shaking despite my efforts to control it. "What is it? Hospital records," I said, "from the day Olivia was born." There was a pause, and she asked carefully. "And Vanessa Hale was there too." Silence. Heavy. "What do you mean there?" Linda asked. "Same hospital, same day, same time." I said, "Linda, there were 2 births, 2 babies." I could hear her breathing on the other end, slow, measured. "Julia," she said quietly, "what are you thinking?" I hesitated. Because saying it out loud made it real, made it impossible to ignore. "I don't know," I admitted. But Michael knew something. He wrote about it. He said there were things I didn't know about that year. Another pause. Then, "Do you think Olivia knows?" Linda asked. The question hit me like a shock. Olivia, my daughter, The one who had brought me those papers. The one who had that photograph. The one who had been speaking to Marcus Hale. I closed my eyes again, trying to piece it all together. Her urgency, her pressure, her fear disguised as control. She knows something, I said slowly. Maybe not everything, but enough. Then you need to be careful, Linda said immediately. If she's acting on partial information, she could be making decisions she doesn't fully understand. Or worse, she could be acting on lies. I need to talk to Daniel, I said. He needs to see all of this. Yes, Linda agreed, and Julia. Don't confront Olivia yet. Not until you know exactly what you're dealing with. I let out a shaky breath. That's getting harder by the minute, I know, she said gently. But this isn't just emotional anymore. This is legal. This is history. This is everything. She was right. This wasn't just about betrayal. This wasn't just about money. This was about identity, about truth, about the foundation of my entire life. I ended the call slowly, my hand lingering on the phone for a moment. Then I looked back at the lockbox, at the letters, at the documents, at the life I thought I knew. And for the first time since this began, I understood something clearly. Whatever Michael had hidden, whatever Vanessa had fought to expose, whatever Olivia was chasing now, it all led back to one question. One truth I wasn't ready to face, but would have to, because if those records meant what I feared they meant, then the daughter I had raised for 38 years might not be mine. I didn't go home right away. I couldn't. The thought of walking back into that house, of seeing Olivia, of pretending everything was normal, felt impossible now. The ground beneath me had shifted too much. I needed time to think, to breathe, to put some kind of structure around the chaos unraveling in my mind. So I drove. No destination, no plan, just distance. The road blurred past me as my thoughts circled the same question over and over again. If Olivia isn't my biological daughter, then who is she? And even worse, where is my child? The idea felt too large to hold, too terrifying to examine fully, so my mind kept pulling back, refusing to look directly at it. Instead, it focused on smaller things, details, clues, pieces. Marcus Hale, Vanessa's son. If Vanessa had given birth the same day I did, then Marcus could be. I stopped the thought immediately. No, I said out loud, gripping the steering wheel tighter. Don't jump ahead. But the connection was there, whether I wanted it or not. Marcus had been contacting Olivia. Marcus had been looking into Michael's estate. Marcus had somehow provided Olivia with that photograph. And now Olivia was trying to take control of everything. This wasn't random. This was coordinated. And I was right in the center of it. By the time I finally turned the car around, the sun had already begun its slow descent. I had been driving for hours without realizing it. I needed to go back. I needed to see Olivia. Not to confront her, not yet, but to watch, to listen, to understand how much she knew and how much she was hiding. When I pulled into the driveway, her car was already there. Of course it was. She hadn't waited for me. She never did anymore. I sat in the car for a moment, my hands resting on my lap, steadying myself. You can do this. You've done harder things. I took a deep breath, then opened the door. The house was quiet when I stepped inside. Too quiet. Olivia, I called. No answer. I moved slowly through the living room, then toward the kitchen. That's when I heard it. Her voice. Low. Outside. I stopped, instinctively. The back door was slightly open, just enough for her words to drift inside. I told you she's hesitating, Olivia said. My heart skipped. She saw the picture, she continued, but she still doesn't know enough. I froze. Every muscle in my body locked in place. There was a pause as if she were listening. Then no, she's not going to a doctor, Olivia said quickly. Not yet. That would make it too obvious. Doctor. My chest tightened. She's already confused. Half the time, Olivia added, her voice dropping lower. We just need a little more pressure. Something inside me cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like a fracture spreading beneath the surface. She trusts me, Olivia said. She always has. I couldn't breathe. She'll sign. The words landed like a final blow. I stepped back slowly, silently, before she could come back inside. I moved into the hallway, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure she would hear it. She trusts me. She always has. The irony of it was almost unbearable, because even now, after everything, I still wanted to believe that wasn't who she really was, that there was something else, Something underneath all of this. Fear, confusion, manipulation. Anything but this cold, calculated version of my daughter. The back door creaked. I forced myself to move, to sit, to look normal. By the time Olivia walked into the kitchen, I was already seated at the table, my hands folded neatly in front of me. She paused when she saw me, just for a second, then she smiled. "Hey," she said casually. "You're back." "I am," I replied. "Everything okay?" she asked, walking toward the counter. I studied her carefully. Her posture was relaxed, her tone light. But now that I knew what to listen for, I could hear it. The control, the calculation. "Yes," I said, "I just needed some air." She nodded. "That's good," she said. "You've seemed overwhelmed." Overwhelmed. Another word carefully chosen, another step in a narrative I hadn't realized she was building. "I suppose I have," I said quietly. She glanced at me just briefly as if checking something, measuring, assessing. "So," she said, reaching for a glass. "Did you think more about the papers?" I felt my pulse quicken. This was it, the moment, not a confrontation, but a test. "I did," I said slowly, and she pressed. I tilted my head slightly, watching her. "I think I need to understand a few things better first." Her shoulders stiffened, like what I picked my words carefully. "The competency declaration," I said. "It says I'm showing signs of cognitive decline." She didn't react immediately. Too controlled, too prepared. "It's just standard language," she said after a moment. "They include that in all these documents." "That's not what it looks like," I replied gently. Her eyes flickered. "Just for a second, it's for your protection," she insisted, "in case something happens." "And if nothing happens," I asked. She hesitated. "Then it's still better to have things in place." "Of course. Always better, always safer, always her way." I nodded slowly as if I were considering it. "I understand that," I said, "but I'd feel more comfortable having someone else look at it." Her expression changed instantly. "You don't trust me?" she asked. There it was, the shift. From calm to emotional, from control to guilt. I held her gaze. "It's not about trust," I said softly. "Then what is it about?" she pressed. "Clarity," I said. The word hung between us. She didn't like that answer. I could see it. Because clarity was the one thing she didn't want me to have. "You're overcomplicating this," she said, her tone tightening. "There's that word again," I replied quietly. She exhaled sharply. "Mom, I'm trying to help you." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because I had just heard her say something very different outside, on the phone. She's already confused half the time. The words echoed in my mind. I leaned back slightly in my chair, studying her. "Olivia," I said gently, "who have you been talking to about this?" The question caught her off guard. I saw it immediately. "No one," she said too quickly. "Are you sure?" "Yes," she snapped. "Why would you even ask?" That I held her gaze steady and calm. "Because you sound like someone else," I said. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. For the first time since this began, she didn't have an immediate answer. And in that silence, I saw it. Not just manipulation, not just control, but something else. Fear. Real, raw fear. And suddenly, I understood something I hadn't before. Olivia wasn't just pushing me. She was under pressure. From someone. From something. And whatever that pressure was, it was strong enough to turn my daughter into someone I barely recognized. The question was, who? And how far were they willing to go? Olivia didn't answer my question. Not really. She looked at me, really looked this time, and for a brief moment the confidence she had been wearing like armor slipped. It wasn't gone completely, but I saw the crack. Fear. Then it disappeared just as quickly. "You're tired, Mom," she said, turning away from me as if that settled everything. "We don't need to do this right now." Deflection, classic. But now that I knew what I was looking at, it didn't work the way it used to. "I'm not tired," I said calmly. She didn't turn back around. "I think you are," she replied. "And I think you're overthinking things that don't need to be complicated." That word again. Complicated. It wasn't just a habit. It was part of a script. "Olivia," I said, my voice steady. "I'm going to have a lawyer review the documents." This time she turned. Fast, what she said. "I already made an appointment," I continued. "It's just to understand everything clearly." Her eyes narrowed. "You already went, didn't you?" I didn't answer immediately. That was enough. "You did," she said, her voice tightening. "You went behind my back. Behind her back." The irony of it almost made me smile. "I didn't go behind your back," I said. "I made a decision about my own life. "That's not what this is about," she snapped. "This is about making sure you're protected, from what I asked." She hesitated. And in that hesitation, everything spoke louder than words. "From making mistakes," she said finally. I leaned forward slightly. "And who decides what counts as a mistake?" She didn't answer. Instead, she crossed her arms, her posture closing off. "This is exactly what I was afraid of," she said. "You're letting other people get in your head, other people." So she knew, or at least suspected. "Who would that be?" I asked quietly. She didn't respond right away. "Then I don't know," she said. "Your friends. Some lawyer trying to make money off you." "It doesn't matter. The point is they don't have your best interests at heart, and you do," I asked. "Yes," she said immediately. Too rehearsed. I studied her for a long moment. "You really believe that?" I said. I know that she insisted, but her voice wasn't as steady as before. Not quite. And that was when I realized something important. Olivia wasn't just lying to me. She was trying to convince herself. I sat back in my chair, letting the silence stretch. Then slowly I spoke again. "Who is Marcus Hale?" The reaction was instant. Her entire body went rigid. Her eyes snapped to mine wide for just a fraction of a second before she tried to recover. "Who?" she said. Too late. I had seen it. "Marcus Hale," I repeated. "Who is he, Olivia?" "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, turning away again, moving toward the sink as if she suddenly had something urgent to do. But her hands were empty. There was nothing there. "Really?" I said softly. "Because he seems to know a lot about us." That stopped her. Completely. Her back was still to me, but I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she held herself, like she was deciding something, calculating, choosing her next move. Slowly, she turned around. Her expression was different now, less defensive, more cautious. "Where did you hear that name?" she asked. I didn't answer her question, not directly. "I know he's been looking into Michael's estate," I said. "I know he's been in contact with you." Her eyes flickered again, and this time, she didn't deny it. Silence filled the room, thick, heavy. "You've been going through my things," she said finally, her tone low. "No," I replied. "I've been protecting myself." She let out a short, humorless laugh. From me, I held her gaze. "I don't know yet," I said honestly. That hit her harder than anything else I had said. I could see it, the shift, the hurt, but also the anger. "You think I'm trying to hurt you?" she asked. "I think you're not telling me the truth," I said. Another silence. Longer this time. Then she looked away. Just for a second. But it was enough. "I didn't start this," she said quietly. My heart skipped. "What does that mean?" I asked. She shook her head. "Nothing." "Olivia," I said nothing. She snapped louder now, but it wasn't anger, not really. It was pressure, cracking through. "Then tell me this." I said, my voice still calm, still controlled. "Why does Marcus Hale think he has a claim to Michael's estate that did it?" She froze, completely. And when she looked back at me, there was no mask left, just fear. "He told you?" she asked. The question slipped out before she could stop it, and just like that, I had my answer. I leaned back slightly, letting the moment settle. "No," I said quietly, "but you just did." Her face went pale. She realized it instantly. "What did he tell you, Olivia?" I asked. She shook her head, backing away slightly. "You don't understand," she said. "Then help me understand." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because it's not that simple." Her voice broke on the last word, and there it was again. Not control, not manipulation, emotion, real, raw, conflicted. I softened my tone slightly. "Try me," I said. She looked at me for a long moment, then down at her hands, then back at me. And for a second, I thought she might tell me everything, but instead she closed herself off again. "He says things," she said finally, "about Dad, about money, about things that were hidden, what things I pressed." She hesitated. "Then he says, 'You knew,'" she said. The words landed like a shock. "Knew what that there was more," she said. "That Dad wasn't who you thought he was. That there were things you kept from me." My chest tightened. "That's not true, isn't it?" she shot back. "Because he has proof, Mom. He has documents. He has records. So did I. Only now—" They were starting to say something very different. "What kind of proof?" I asked carefully. She looked at me, her eyes searching my face, as if trying to decide whether I was lying or whether she had been. "Financial records," she said slowly. "Payments, agreements, things that don't make sense if everything was Normal. My heart pounded. He told me you were protecting something, she continued, that you always have been. I shook my head. No, I said, that's not what happened. Then what did happen, she demanded. The question hung between us. Heavy, loaded, because now I had answers she didn't, or at least pieces of them, but I couldn't tell her yet, not until I understood everything, not until I knew how deep this went. I'm still figuring that out, I said quietly. She stared at me. Frustration, fear, confusion, all tangled together. Well, you better figure it out fast, she said. Why, I asked. She hesitated. Then, because Marcus isn't going to wait, she said. A cold weight settled in my chest. What does that mean? It means he's already started something, she replied. Legal, official. My pulse quickened. What kind of legal? She held my gaze, and for the first time there was no deflection, no manipulation, just truth. He's challenging the estate, she said. The words landed like a verdict, final, unavoidable, and if he wins, she added quietly, everything changes. I felt the room shift around me, not physically, but in a way that mattered more, because now, this wasn't just a family problem, this was a legal war, and it had already begun. Everything changes. Olivia's words stayed with me long after the conversation ended, echoing in the quiet spaces of the house, settling into the walls like something permanent. Marcus isn't going to wait. He's already started something. Legal. Official. I didn't respond right away after she said it. I couldn't. My mind was already moving ahead, connecting pieces, building a picture I didn't want to see but could no longer ignore. Marcus Hale wasn't just circling the edges of our lives anymore. He was stepping into them. And whatever he believed, whatever story he had built about Michael, about Vanessa, about me, he was ready to fight for it. That night, Olivia stayed. She didn't say much after our conversation. Neither did I. We moved around each other carefully like strangers who had suddenly found themselves sharing the same space. She made dinner, though neither of us ate much. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was full of things we weren't saying. Questions. Accusations. Truths waiting to surface. At one point, I caught her looking at me. Not with anger, not even with suspicion, but with something softer, something uncertain. And for a brief moment, I saw my daughter again, not the woman who had brought me legal documents to sign, not the one who had been speaking in rehearsed phrases, but the child who used to look at me like I could fix anything. Then it was gone, replaced by distance, by doubt, by whatever Marcus had put into her head. I didn't sleep much. Again. But this time it wasn't just fear keeping me awake. It was resolve. I had spent too many years accepting things I didn't fully understand. Too many years choosing peace over truth. Too many years trusting that what I didn't know couldn't hurt me. I was wrong. By morning, I had made a decision. I was going back to the cabin. The drive north felt different this time. Focused, intentional. The road stretched ahead of me, winding through trees and quiet stretches of land that hadn't changed in decades. I hadn't been here in years, maybe longer than I wanted to admit. Michael had always treated the cabin like a separate world. Now I knew why. When I finally pulled up, the place looked exactly as I remembered. Still, isolated, untouched by time, or at least, that's how it appeared. I stepped out of the car slowly, the gravel crunching beneath my feet. The air was cooler here, sharper, carrying the faint scent of water and pine. For a moment, I just stood there. This was where the photograph had been taken. This was where Michael had brought Olivia. This was where Vanessa had stood beside them, smiling like she belonged. A tight knot formed in my chest. You kept everything here, didn't you? I whispered. Not just things, truth, secrets, pieces of a life I was never allowed to see. I walked up to the door and hesitated. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out the key. Of course, I still had it. I had always had it. I just never used it. The lock turned easily. The door opened with a soft creak. And just like that, I stepped into a part of my husband's life I had never truly known. The cabin smelled like dust and old wood. Nothing had been touched in years. The furniture was exactly where it had always been. The same couch, the same table, the same quiet stillness. But now, it felt different. Not peaceful, not private, but hidden. I moved slowly through the space, my eyes scanning everything. Every detail mattered now. Every object could mean something. I went straight to the back room, Michael's office. If there were answers here, they would be there. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open gently. The room was small, simple. A desk, a chair, a bookshelf lined with old files and notebooks. At first glance, it looked ordinary, but I knew better now. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. Then I began to search. The desk drawers came first. Most of them contained exactly what you'd expect. Pens, old receipts, random papers. But the bottom drawer, that was different. It was locked. Of course it was. I stared at it for a moment, my heart beating faster. Another lock, another secret. But this time I didn't hesitate. I had come too far for that. I searched the room quickly, checking the usual places. It didn't take long. The key was taped to the underside of the desk, hidden, but not well enough. I pulled it free, my fingers steady now. No hesitation, no doubt, just action. The lock clicked open. I pulled the drawer out slowly. Inside, more files, more documents, and a thick envelope, sealed, with my name on it. Again. Julia. My breath caught. Another letter. Another truth he never gave me. I picked it up carefully. The weight of it felt heavier than it should. Not physically, emotionally. I opened it. Inside were several pages typed this time, not handwritten, more deliberate, more final. I began to read. Julia. If you've come this far, then you already know that there are things I kept from you. Things I convinced myself were necessary at the time. I felt my chest tighten. Necessary. That word again. Always a justification. The situation with Vanessa Hale did not end the way I told you it did. Of course it didn't. After Olivia was born, there were complications. Not just medical, but administrative. Mistakes were made, records were unclear, and in the middle of all that confusion, something happened that I didn't fully understand at the time. My hands tightened on the paper. Something happened. Vanessa claimed that her child had been switched, that the baby she left the hospital with was not hers. My heart stopped. Completely, I couldn't breathe. I forced myself to keep reading. At first, I thought it was grief, confusion. But then, there were details, inconsistencies, things that didn't line up. The room felt smaller, the air thinner. I never found definitive proof, but I found enough to make me question everything. Everything. The word echoed in my mind. I chose silence, Julia. Not because I didn't care, but because I was afraid of what the truth would do to us. Tears blurred the page. If Vanessa was right, then it meant that the child we brought home might not have been ours. The words shattered something inside me. I dropped into the chair behind me, the paper trembling in my hands. No, I whispered, but it was there. Written, real, unavoidable. The child we brought home might not have been ours. My mind raced, trying to reject it, to push it away, to find any reason it couldn't be true. But there was none. Because I had already seen the records, the hospital documents, the overlapping timelines. The possibility had already taken root. And now, Michael had confirmed it. At least enough to fear it. At least enough to hide it. I stared at the letter, my vision shaking. All these years, all these memories, every birthday, every milestone, every moment I had believed was mine. What if it wasn't? What if the life I had built was built on something that had never been certain? A cold realization settled over me. This wasn't just about Olivia anymore. This wasn't just about Marcus. This wasn't just about Michael's secrets. This was about identity, truth, reality itself. And if this letter was right, then somewhere out there was another child, mine, and I had never known. I don't remember how long I sat there. Minutes, hours. Time had lost its shape the moment I read those words. The child we brought home might not have been ours. They replayed in my mind over and over again, each time cutting deeper, each time stripping away another layer of certainty I had built my life on. I had always believed there were two kinds of truths, the ones you know and the ones you don't. I never imagined there was a third kind, the kind you live with every day without realizing it's a lie. I forced myself to breathe, in, out, slow, steady, because if I let myself fall apart now, I might not come back from it. I looked down at the letter again, my hands trembling but still holding it tightly. Michael had known, not everything, but enough. Enough to doubt, enough to hide it. Enough to make decisions that shape the rest of our lives. And he had never told me. Not once. Not when Olivia was a child. Not when she grew up. Not even when he was dying. A fresh wave of pain surged through me, different from grief, sharper than betrayal. This wasn't just about what he had done. It was about what he had taken from me. The chance to know the truth. The chance to choose. The chance to be a mother. Fully, honestly, without doubt. I closed my eyes for a moment, pressing my fingers against the bridge of my nose. Think, I whispered to myself. Don't fall apart. Think. Because this wasn't over. Not even close. If anything, it was just beginning. I went back to the papers in the drawer. If Michael had left this letter here, there had to be more. And there was. Tucked beneath the envelope were additional documents, older, more official. Copies of hospital records, correspondence, notes. I spread them out across the desk, forcing myself to read carefully this time. Not emotionally, not as a wife, not as a mother, but as someone searching for facts, dates, times, signatures. The hospital records matched what I had already found. 2 births, same day, same facility, temporary neonatal transfer, no clear follow-up, no correction, no explanation, just silence. The correspondence was worse. Letters between Michael and someone at the hospital. Formal at first, then increasingly tense. We have reviewed the matter and found no evidence of procedural error. Due to the passage of time, records are incomplete. Further investigation is not recommended. I clenched my jaw. Not recommended. Of course it wasn't. Because the truth, if it existed, would have been messy, complicated. That word again, always used to avoid something deeper. I flipped to another document. This one wasn't from the hospital. It was from Vanessa. Handwritten, emotional, unfiltered. You think I'm crazy, but I know what I felt. I know what I saw. That baby wasn't mine. My chest tightened. You can ignore me all you want, Michael, but I won't stop. I won't let this disappear. Disappear, like she had, like everything had, until now. I leaned back in the chair, my mind spinning. Vanessa had believed it. Michael had doubted it. The hospital had dismissed it. And I had never even known it was a question. A quiet, terrifying thought began to take shape. What if Vanessa was right? And if she was? What if Marcus wasn't who he thought he was either? The pieces shifted in my mind, rearranging, reframing, Marcus Hale, Olivia Cruz, 2 lives built on assumptions, 2 identities that might not be what they seemed. And now, those lives were colliding because of money, because of inheritance, because of secrets that refused to stay buried. I pressed my hand flat against the desk, grounding myself. This isn't about money, I said aloud. It never was. Not really. It was about truth, about who belonged where, about who had been given what and who had lost something without ever knowing it. And suddenly, everything Olivia had said made a different kind of sense. He has proof. You knew. You were protecting something. She believed I had hidden this from her, that I had known all along, that I had chosen silence, just like Michael had. A sharp pain hit my chest. No, I whispered. No, I didn't know. But how could she believe that, from her perspective, there were documents, payments, secrets, and me, the one constant in all of it? Of course she thought I knew. Of course she thought I was lying. I pushed back from the desk and stood up slowly, my legs unsteady. I needed to move, to do something. Sitting here wasn't going to change anything. I gathered the documents carefully, placing them back into the envelope, then into my bag. The photograph, the letters, the records, all of it. This wasn't just evidence anymore. It was the foundation of whatever came next. The drive back felt shorter, not because the distance had changed, but because my mind was focused now. Clear. For the first time since this began, I wasn't reacting. I was planning. When I pulled into the driveway, Olivia's car was still there. Of course it was. I sat for a moment watching the house, this place that had once felt safe, certain. Now it felt like a stage, a place where everyone was playing a role, and no one was telling the full truth. I stepped out of the car and walked inside. Olivia was in the living room this time, sitting on the couch, her phone in her hand. She looked up when she heard me. There was something different in her expression. Less defensive, more anxious. "You were gone a long time," she said. "I had things to do," I replied. She nodded, but her eyes stayed on me, searching. "Did you talk to anyone?" she asked. I paused. Then I made a decision. "Yes," I said. Her fingers tightened slightly around her phone, and she asked. I walked further into the room, setting my bag down carefully. "And I think we need to talk," I said. Her posture shifted immediately, tension, prepared, guarded, about what she asked. I met her gaze, about the truth I said. Silence fell between us, heavy, unavoidable. What truth, she asked, her voice quieter now. I took a slow breath, because once I said this, there was no going back. "The truth about the day you were born," I said. Her face changed instantly. Confusion, then fear, real, unfiltered. "What do you mean?" she asked. I held her gaze. I said slowly that there are things neither of us were told. Her eyes widened slightly. What things? I hesitated. Not because I doubted the truth, but because I understood what it would do. To her, to me, to everything. "Olivia," I said gently, before we go any further, "I need to ask you something." She didn't respond. She just watched me, waiting. "What did Marcus tell you?" I asked. The question landed hard. I saw it, felt it, and this time she didn't deflect. She didn't deny, she didn't get angry. She just looked at me, and for the first time since this began, she looked unsure. He said, She started, then stopped. I waited. He said I wasn't who I thought I was. She finished quietly. The room went still, completely still, because now we were both standing in the same place. On the edge of a truth neither of us could avoid any longer. The words hung between us like something fragile and dangerous. He said I wasn't who I thought I was. For a moment neither of us moved. I could hear the faint ticking of the clock on the wall, the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, ordinary sounds that suddenly felt too loud, too sharp, like the world was trying to remind us that everything outside this room was still normal. But nothing inside it was. "Tell me exactly what he said," I asked quietly. Olivia didn't answer right away. She looked down at her hands, her fingers tightening around her phone like it was the only solid thing left in her world. "I didn't believe him at first," she said finally, her voice low. "I thought it was some kind of scam, some crazy story to get money." I stayed silent, letting her speak, letting her choose how much truth she was ready to give. But then he showed me things, she continued. Documents, old records, bank transfers, letters. My chest tightened. "So you believed him?" "I didn't want to," she said quickly, looking up at me, but it started to make sense. In what way, I asked. Her eyes searched mine, as if she was trying to decide whether I was still someone she could trust. "Dad," she said, "the payments, the secrecy, the way he never talked about certain things." I nodded slowly. "I've seen them," I said. That surprised her. "What the records?" I continued. "The payments to Vanessa, the notes, the letters." Her face changed instantly. "You knew she asked." "No," I said firmly. "I found them recently, just like you did." She stared at me, trying to read me, trying to decide if I was lying. "I didn't know any of this, Olivia." I said softer now. "Not until now." The tension in her shoulders eased just slightly, but it didn't disappear. "Then why didn't you tell me?" she asked. The question hit harder than I expected, because I didn't know, I repeated, and because I'm still trying to understand it myself. She looked away again, frustrated, conflicted. "He said you were hiding something," she muttered. "I wasn't. He said you always protected Dad," she added, "no matter what." I swallowed. That part wasn't entirely untrue. "I protected our family," I said carefully. "There's a difference." She didn't respond because she didn't agree. I could see that. To her, it probably looked the same. Silence stretched again. Longer this time. Heavier. Then he said, "I might not be your daughter." The words landed softly, but the impact was anything but. I felt it in my chest, in my throat, in every part of me that had spent 38 years loving her without question. I didn't react immediately. I couldn't. Because if I did, if I let my emotions take over, we would lose this moment. And this moment mattered, more than anything. "Did he say anything else?" I asked. My voice was steady, barely. Olivia hesitated, then nodded. "He said there was another child," she said. "That something happened at the hospital. That there was a mistake." My heart pounded harder, faster, louder. "He said your baby might have been switched," she finished. There it was. The truth. out loud, between us. No longer a possibility, no longer a theory, but something real enough to be spoken. I closed my eyes for a brief second, not to escape it, but to absorb it, to accept that this was where we were now. When I opened them again, Olivia was watching me, closely, waiting, for denial, for anger, for something. "Did you believe him?" I asked. She hesitated. I didn't know what to believe, she admitted. But then, the photo. Of course, the photo. "That's what made it real for you," I said. She nodded. I'd never seen it before, she said, but he had it. He said it proved that Vanessa was still involved. "Even after everything, she was," I said quietly. Olivia's eyes snapped to mine. "You knew that I suspected," I replied, "but I never had proof, and I chose not to dig deeper." Why, she demanded. Because I was afraid. Because I didn't want to lose everything. Because sometimes not knowing feels safer than the truth. But I didn't say any of that. "I thought I was protecting you," I said instead. She let out a bitter laugh. "Protecting me from what?" "My own life. From something that could have destroyed us," I said. "It's destroying us now," she shot back. That landed because she was right. I took a slow breath. "Yes," I said, "it is." Silence again. But this time it was different. Not defensive, not hostile, just heavy, shared. "We're both in this now," I said, "whether we want to be or not." She didn't argue, because she knew it was true. "What about Marcus?" I asked after a moment. Her expression tightened. "He thinks he's entitled to something," she said. "Money, property, something from Dad's estate. Because he believes he's Dad's son." She nodded. "Yes." I felt a cold weight settle in my chest. "And do you believe that?" I asked. She hesitated. "I don't know," she said, "but the payments, they don't make sense otherwise." I understood her logic. I really did, because I had thought the same thing, until I saw everything else. "He's not telling you everything," I said. She looked at me sharply. "And you are?" "I'm trying to," I said. "That's not the same thing." "No," I admitted. "It's not." Another pause. "Then what aren't you telling me?" she asked. The question was direct, clear, unavoidable. And for the first time since this began, I realized something. I wasn't protecting her anymore. I was protecting the truth. Because once I said it, once I showed her what I had found, there was no going back for either of us. I walked slowly toward my bag and opened it. Her eyes followed every movement. Careful, alert. I pulled out the envelope, the documents, the letter, everything. "What is that?" she asked. "Answers," I said. Her breath caught. About what I looked at her, really looked at her, at the woman she had become, at the child I had raised, at the person who might or might not be mine, about everything, I said. I placed the envelope on the table between us, and for a moment neither of us moved, because we both knew what it meant. This was it. The point where the past stopped being hidden and started being real. "Before you read this," I said softly, "you need to understand something." She didn't respond. She just waited. "I didn't know," I said. "Not then. Not until now." Her eyes searched mine. "Looking for something. Truth. Maybe. Or just something to hold on to. I need you to believe that I added." She didn't answer right away. Then slowly, she nodded. Not fully, not completely, but enough. And that was all I could ask for. "For now," she said. I nodded. "For now." She reached for the envelope. Her hands were shaking, just like mine had been. And as she opened it, I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to think before. This wasn't just about finding the truth. It was about surviving it, together or not at all. Olivia didn't open the envelope right away. Her fingers rested on the edge of it, tense, uncertain, like she was holding something that might explode the moment she let it. I understood that feeling. I had lived it. "Go ahead," I said softly. She looked up at me. For a moment, I saw the little girl again, the one who used to hesitate before opening birthday gifts, afraid of being disappointed. But this wasn't a gift. This was something else entirely. Slowly, she opened the envelope. The sound of paper shifting seemed louder than it should have been. She pulled out the documents first, the hospital records. Her eyes moved quickly, at first skimming, searching for something familiar, then slower, more careful, more deliberate. I watched her face as she read, confusion, then concentration, then something else, fear. "This," she whispered, "this is from the day I was born." "Yes." Her eyes flicked up to mine, and Vanessa Hale. She was there too. She looked back down at the page, reading, rereading, trying to make sense of it. 2 births, she said quietly. Same day, same hospital. Her voice trailed off because she saw it. The same thing I had seen. The same possibility. No, she said, suddenly shaking her head. This doesn't prove anything. I know, I said, but it proved enough. Enough to question everything. She picked up the next document. The letters. Michael's handwriting. Her father's words. I saw her expression change the moment she recognized it. Dad wrote this, she asked. Yes. She unfolded the pages slowly, carefully, like she was afraid of what they might say. Then she began to read. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just watched. Because this was something she had to experience on her own. Her eyes moved across the page, line by line, word by word, and as she read, her entire body changed. Her shoulders tensed, her breathing slowed, her grip on the paper tightened. Then she stopped, completely, her eyes fixed on one line. I knew exactly which one. The child we brought home might not have been ours. She didn't speak, didn't move, didn't breathe. For a long moment, the room felt suspended in time. Then, that's not real, she said. The denial came out quietly, fragile, like something that could shatter if touched too hard. I didn't respond, because I had said the same thing, thought the same thing, hoped the same thing, but the truth doesn't disappear just because we refuse to accept it. She read the line again, slower this time, then the next, then the next. Each word sinking deeper, cutting sharper, until finally she lowered the paper, her hands trembling. This can't be true, she said. I swallowed. I don't know if it is, I replied. But it's possible. That's not the same thing, she snapped, her voice rising. Possible doesn't mean real, I know. Then why are you acting like it is? Because we have to consider it, I said, whether we like it or not. She stood up suddenly, pushing the chair back with a sharp scrape. No, she said. No, I'm not doing that, Olivia. No, she repeated louder now. This is insane. This is just old documents, incomplete records, some letter Dad never even sent. That doesn't mean anything. It means enough, I said quietly. To you, she shot back. Not to me. Her words hit harder than I expected, because they weren't just about the documents. They were about us, about the difference between what I had discovered and what she was willing to accept. She started pacing, fast, tight movements, like she needed to burn off the energy building inside her. This is exactly what Marcus was talking about, she said. Confusion, half-truths, things that don't add up. And you think he has the full truth, I asked. She stopped, turned. He has more than this, she said. What does that mean? He has records you don't have, she replied. Legal records, financial agreements, things that prove Dad was hiding something big. I've seen the payments, I said. I know there was something. Then you know he was lying, she said. Yes, I said, but not necessarily about what you think. She frowned. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I said carefully, that Marcus might not be telling you the full story either. Her expression hardened. Why would he lie? Why would he tell the truth, I countered. She hesitated, just for a second. But it was enough. He has a reason, she said finally. A claim. To what? To what's his, she said. And how does he know what's his? I asked. She didn't answer. Because she couldn't. Because none of us knew. Not really. I stepped closer. Slowly. Carefully, Olivia, I said softer now. What if he's wrong? She shook her head immediately. He's not. How do you know? I just do. That's not an answer. It's enough for me. The words came out sharp, defensive, but underneath them I could hear it. Doubt. Small. But there. You're scared, I said. That stopped her. I'm not scared, she snapped. Yes, you are, I said gently. You're scared that everything you've believed about yourself might not be true. Her eyes flashed. And you're not. She shot back. The question hit. Because it was fair. Because it was real. Because it was exactly what I had been feeling. I am, I admitted. That surprised her. She hadn't expected that. But being scared doesn't change the truth, I continued. It just makes it harder to face. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. She looked down at the papers again, at the letter, at the life that was unraveling in front of her, then back at me. What if it's true, she asked quietly. The question was different this time. Not defensive, not angry, just real, honest. I took a slow breath. Then we find out what it means, I said. For who, she asked. For both of us, she swallowed. And Marcus? I shook my head slightly. Marcus doesn't get to decide who we are, I said. Not without proof. He says he has proof. Then we need to see it. I replied. She hesitated. You want to meet him? She said. It wasn't a question. It was a realization. Yes, I said. Her eyes searched mine. You think he's lying. I think he's hiding something, I said. And if he's not, then we deal with that, I said. She looked away, thinking, processing, struggling. Then he wants to meet anyway, she said. My pulse quickened. When soon she replied. He said, it's time to put everything on the table. I let out a slow breath. Of course he did. Because that's how people like him operate. They control the timing, the setting, the narrative. But not this time. Then we meet him, I said. Her head snapped up. Just like that. Yes. You're not even going to question it. I already am, I said. That's why I want to hear it directly. She stared at me, trying to understand, trying to decide if this was strength or recklessness. Okay, she said finally. One word. But it changed everything. Because now we weren't on opposite sides anymore. Not completely. Now we were standing in the same place, facing the same unknown. And whatever came next, we would face it together. Or we would fall apart trying. Either way, the truth was coming, and there was no stopping it. We didn't sleep much that night. Not because we were afraid of Marcus, not even because of what we might hear from him, but because something had shifted between us. For the first time since all of this began, Olivia and I weren't circling each other like opponents. We weren't hiding behind half-truths or rehearsed lines. The distance was still there, but it wasn't growing anymore. It was holding, fragile, uncertain, but real. The meeting was set for the next afternoon. Daniel insisted on being there. I'm not letting you walk into this unprepared, he said firmly over the phone. If this man is making a legal claim, then we treat it like one. I agreed. This wasn't just a conversation anymore. This was a confrontation, and we needed to be ready. The meeting took place in Daniel's office. Neutral ground, controlled, safe, or as safe as something like this could be. I arrived early with Olivia. We didn't talk much on the drive there. There wasn't anything left to say, not until we heard what Marcus had to offer. Or what he thought he did. Daniel greeted us at the door, his expression serious but calm. He's already here, he said quietly. Of course he was. Waiting, preparing, just like he had been from the beginning. I felt my chest tighten slightly, but I forced myself to stay steady. This was my life, my family, my truth, and I wasn't going to let someone else define it without a fight. We walked into the conference room together. Marcus Hale stood when we entered. He was taller than I expected, late 30s, maybe early 40s. Dark hair, sharp features, controlled posture. There was something about him, something familiar, but I couldn't place it. Not immediately. Then he looked at me, and I saw it. Michael. Not exactly, but enough. A shadow, a resemblance. Something that made my stomach twist. Mrs. Cruz, he said, his voice calm, measured. Thank you for coming. I didn't respond right away. I just looked at him. Really looked. This man had been moving pieces behind the scenes of my life. Talking to my daughter. Digging into my husband's past. Trying to claim something that might not even belong to him. And now, he was standing in front of me. Like he had every right to be here. You've caused a lot of damage, I said finally. His expression didn't change. I've uncovered the truth, he replied. No, I said quietly. You've uncovered a version of it. That made him pause. Just slightly, but I saw it. Daniel gestured for everyone to sit. We did. Olivia beside me. Marcus across from us. Daniel at the head of the table. Control, structure, exactly what we needed. Let's be clear about why we're here, Daniel said. Mr. Hale, you've initiated inquiries into the estate of Michael Cruz. You've also made claims directly and indirectly regarding your connection to him. Today is your opportunity to present whatever evidence you believe supports those claims. Marcus nodded. Calm, confident, prepared. I appreciate that, he said. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. Of course he did. Another folder, another set of papers, another attempt to rewrite my life. He placed it on the table, opened it, and slid several documents forward. Financial records, he said. Payments made by Michael Cruz to Vanessa Hale over the course of 18 years. I didn't look at them. I already knew. I've seen them, I said. That surprised him, just slightly. Then you understand the implication, he replied. I understand that money was transferred. I said, I don't accept your conclusion. His eyes narrowed. Those payments weren't random, he said. They were structured, consistent, timed. Yes, I said, I know. They ended when I turned 18. The room went still. I felt Olivia tense beside me. Daniel leaned forward slightly. And what conclusion do you draw from that? Daniel asked. Marcus didn't hesitate. That Michael Cruz was my father, he said. There it was, clear, direct, unapologetic. Olivia inhaled sharply. I didn't move, didn't react, because I had expected this, prepared for it. And what evidence do you have beyond financial support? Daniel asked. Marcus reached for another document. Correspondence, he said. Letters between my mother and Michael Cruz. References to responsibility, to obligation. I felt a flicker of anger. Obligation doesn't mean paternity, I said. It often does, he replied. Often isn't always. His gaze shifted to me. Sharper now. You're denying it, he asked. I'm questioning you, I said. Silence. Then there's more, he said. Of course there was. There always is. He pulled out another set of papers. Older, more fragile. Saw hospital records, he said. My heart skipped. So he had them too. From the day you were born, he added, glancing briefly at Olivia. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the table. You're not the only one who found them, he said. I met his gaze. I never thought I was. He slid the documents forward. They show what happened, he said. 2 births. Same time, same place. Yes, I said, they do. And what that means, he continued, is that something went wrong. Something that was never corrected. I didn't respond. I let him say it. Let him build his argument, let him reveal what he believed. What it means, he said, his voice steady, is that the identities we've been living with might not be accurate. There it was. The truth. Or at least his version of it. Olivia looked at me, then at him, then back at the documents. What are you saying? She asked quietly. Marcus didn't hesitate. I'm saying he said that Michael Cruz may not have been your father. The words landed hard, but not the way he expected. Because I was ready, because I knew more than he did, because I had something he didn't, and I'm saying I replied calmly that you don't know that. He frowned. I know enough. No, I said, you don't. The room shifted, the balance changed, and for the first time since he walked in, Marcus wasn't in control. You've built a story, I continued, out of payments, out of partial records, out of assumptions. They're not assumptions, he said. They are if you don't have proof, I replied. His jaw tightened. I have more than you think. So do I said. That stopped him. Completely. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Charged. What do you mean? He asked. I reached into my bag, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out the letter. Michael's letter. The one he had never sent. The one that changed everything. I said, placing it on the table, that you're not the only one who's been looking for the truth. His eyes dropped to the paper. Then back to me. Suspicion, uncertainty, for the first time, doubt. Read it, I said, and as he reached for it, I knew. Whatever happened next, he wasn't as certain as he thought he was, and neither was Olivia. But one thing was clear. This wasn't his story to control anymore. Not without all the facts, and not without me. Marcus didn't pick up the letter immediately. For the first time since we'd walked into that room, he hesitated. Not long, just enough. But I saw it. The shift. The moment where certainty cracked and doubt slipped in. Read it, I repeated quietly. He glanced at Daniel, then at Olivia, as if weighing whether this was a trap. It wasn't. It was something far more dangerous. The truth. Finally, he reached for the letter. His fingers were steady, but slower than before, more cautious. He unfolded the pages and began to read. The room fell silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the air felt still, like it was waiting. I watched him closely. At first, his expression didn't change. Focused, controlled, confident, then a flicker. His eyes slowed over a line, then another. His jaw tightened slightly, and then there it was. The same reaction Olivia had, the same moment of impact, the same realization. Whatever he thought he knew, it wasn't complete. He lowered the letter slowly. This... He started, but stopped. The certainty in his voice was gone, completely. This doesn't prove anything, he said finally. I almost smiled, because I had said the exact same thing. It proves enough, I replied. He shook his head. No, it raises questions. That's not the same. Exactly, I said. That caught him off guard. You're the one who's been acting like you have all the answers, I continued. I'm the one saying we don't. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Daniel leaned forward slightly. Mr. Hale, he said, do you have any definitive proof of paternity, DNA, legal acknowledgement, anything that would hold up in court? Marcus didn't answer right away, because he couldn't. I saw it in his face, the hesitation, the calculation. No, he said finally. The word hung in the air, stripped of confidence, stripped of certainty, just truth. And without that, Daniel continued, your claim is based on inference. Financial support alone is not sufficient to establish inheritance rights. Marcus looked down at the documents in front of him, then back at me. You knew, he said quietly. It wasn't an accusation, not anymore, just a question. No, I said. And this time, he believed me. I could see it. The shift in his eyes, the realization that whatever he had built this on wasn't as solid as he thought. My mother believed it, he said. I nodded. I believe that I said. But belief isn't proof. He swallowed. She spent her whole life convinced of it, and mine was built without ever knowing it was a possibility, I replied. That hit him, because now we weren't opponents. We were two people standing in the same place, looking at the same broken truth, from different sides. Olivia shifted beside me. I glanced at her. Her eyes were on Marcus now, not with anger, not with trust, but with something new, distance. What happens now? She asked quietly. No one answered immediately, because the truth was, there wasn't a clear answer. Not yet. Not without more information. Not without more evidence. Not without more truth. I can pursue testing, Marcus said after a moment. DNA. Legal channels. Yes, Daniel said. You can. And if it confirms what I think it will, Marcus asked. Daniel didn't hesitate. Then we deal with that reality. Marcus nodded slowly. Then he looked at me again. And if it doesn't, I held his gaze. Then you've built your life on something that wasn't true, I said. He flinched, just slightly, but I saw it, because I knew exactly how that felt. Olivia exhaled slowly. What about me? She asked. The question was quiet, but it carried more weight than anything else in the room. I turned to her, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. The documents, the claims, the past, all of it, gone. There was just her. My daughter, or the woman I had raised as my daughter, and the question she had just asked. What about me? I reached for her hand. She hesitated. Then she let me take it. That alone meant more than anything else that had happened today. We find out the truth, I said. And then she asked. I tightened my grip slightly. Then we decide what to do with it. She looked at me, searching for certainty, for reassurance, for something solid in the middle of all this uncertainty. You might not be my biological daughter, I said softly. Her eyes filled slightly. I felt it, deep, sharp, but I didn't look away. Because I needed her to hear this. To me, I continued, that doesn't change what we've lived, what we've shared, what we've been to each other. Her breath caught. It doesn't erase 38 years, I said. It doesn't erase who you are to me. A tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. And it doesn't give anyone else the right to come in and tell us what our relationship is worth, I added. She squeezed my hand, tight, like she was holding on to something. Or maybe, like that she was trying not to let go. Marcus looked between us, quiet, no longer pushing, no longer certain, just watching, and maybe understanding, a little. This isn't just about inheritance, I said, turning back to him. It never was. He nodded slowly. I see that now. Good, I said, because whatever the truth is, it belongs to all of us, not just you. He looked down at the letter again, then back at me. I didn't mean to, he started. But he didn't finish. He didn't need to, because we all knew what he meant. The damage had already been done. The question now was what came next. The weeks that followed weren't easy. There were tests, legal processes, more documents, more waiting, more moments where everything felt like it might fall apart again. But something had changed. Olivia stayed, not because she had to, but because she chose to. She stopped pushing the papers, stopped repeating those phrases, stopped trying to control something she didn't fully understand. And slowly, carefully, we started talking again. Not about everything, not all at once, but enough. Enough to rebuild something, piece by piece, truth by truth. As for Marcus, he didn't disappear, but he didn't push either. He waited, like we did. Because now he understood this wasn't just a claim, it was a life, and lives don't get rewritten overnight. One afternoon, months later, I sat alone at the kitchen table. The same table where all of this had started. The same place where Olivia had slid that folder toward me and said, "Just sign it, Mom." I had almost done it. I had almost handed everything over. Not just my home, not just my independence, but my voice, my truth, my life. All because I trusted without questioning. All because I chose comfort over clarity. I picked up the photograph, the one that had started everything. Olivia, Michael, Vanessa, 3 people frozen in a moment I was never meant to see. I studied it carefully, not with fear, not with anger, but with understanding. This wasn't just a picture, it was a door. And once I opened it, everything changed. But not everything was lost. Because in the end, I didn't lose my daughter. I found her again. Not through blood, not through certainty, but through truth. And this time, it was real. The truth doesn't always arrive gently. Sometimes it breaks into your life without warning through a word, a memory, or something as simple as a photograph hidden in the wrong place. And when it does, it doesn't just change what you know, it changes who you are. For most of my life, I believed family was something fixed, something certain, something you didn't question. I was wrong. Family isn't built on what's easy. It's built on what survives the truth. Because the truth will come sooner or later. And when it does, you have 2 choices. You can run from it, or you can face it. Facing it hurts. It forces you to see things you never wanted to see, to question things you thought were unshakable, to stand in uncertainty without knowing what comes next. But it also gives you something powerful, clarity. And with clarity comes choice. I almost lost everything because I was afraid to question what was in front of me. I almost signed away my life because I trusted blindly instead of thinking for myself. But one moment, one photograph stopped me. And sometimes, that's all it takes. So if you're listening to this right now, ask yourself, what would you have done? Would you have signed the paper, or would you have looked closer? I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what you would have done in my place. And if this story meant something to you, if it made you think or feel or question something in your own life, don't forget to like and subscribe. Because stories like this, they don't just entertain us, they remind us to pay attention.